Hello and welcome to EPR with your favorite environmental enthusiasts, Nick and Laura. On today's episode, Laura and I discuss healthy versus unhealthy determination. We talk to our friends Tiffany Duong and JD Reinbott about new career paths, handling toxic feedback, and networking in the most efficient way. And finally, there is enough salt in the ocean to cover the whole surface of the Earth. If the salt in the ocean could be removed and spread evenly over the Earth's land surface, it would form a layer more than 500 feet thick, about the height of a 40-story office building. That is too much salt. I'm getting dried out just thinking about it. So thank you, Sam, for that one. Appreciate it. And hit that music. Okay, folks, our 2023 NAEP Annual Conference and Training Symposium in Phoenix, Arizona has ended. What a wild week of really fun things, I hope, because we are recording this before it actually happens. But I'm really excited about the conference. I hope everyone had a great time. It's always so much fun. So thank you to everyone that makes it possible. It is a real challenge to pull these things together. So I want to give a huge shout out to the planning committee doing all their hard work. I know it's not easy. We're going to have more updates from NAEP throughout the year, but please do check in at www.naep.org for more details. Today's episode is sponsored by the Center for Open Exploration, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to community-based projects which approach marine science and technology from an interdisciplinary perspective, empowering stakeholders of all ages to become ocean explorers and leaders. They are currently working on financially supporting the Ocean Women's Project to support women on island communities becoming a part of the blue economy. Monies raised help provide swimming and snorkeling lessons. Donors can reach out at erica.moulton, MOULTON, @gmail.com. Let's get to our segment. And yeah, so Laura, we talk about team building, right? When you want to build a team to work together. And I don't think we've talked about that at all on the show, which is kind of shocking because we've been doing this for so long. But, it's kind of one of those things. If the big challenges with business, if you have a group full of yes, people who are just going to say yes to the boss no matter what, not healthy. If you have everyone's an overachiever, go-getter type mentality, but only one person can actually succeed, like in promotions or whatever it is, also not healthy. So, what makes a balanced team? How do we kind of avoid some of that? How do we deal with challenges? Sometimes you might have two people that do definitely want to get the same promotion, but only one of them can. Like, how do we navigate that?
Oh yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's kind of two things there because there's the healthy go-getter versus toxic go-getter. If you're just after the promotion, you're kind of toxic already. Mm-hmm. If you're there to do the job and do the best you can at the job and make other people's lives easier that you're working with, then you're a healthy go-getter. But if you're there to get the promotion at all costs, then, to me, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. In my team, you're not getting it.
Yeah. 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 And it's hard to hide some of that stuff. It's like, generally speaking, I guess the bigger your company is, the easier it is to not know what's going on everywhere. And it's one of those, there's a healthy competition and then there's unhealthy competition. I think it kind of applies here too, right? It's the same kind of thing where, it can be fun. Like, the spirit of the game can be great and fun and wonderful. But if at the end you're like shoving people because you lost, and into the dirt, whatever, that's a huge problem. And it's the same kind of challenge when you have people that are vying for one spot. And then the aftermath of that is not fun either. So, time heals all wounds one way or the other, but you want to keep the team together. You want to, but if you can't, then you move on.
Yeah. I've experienced both of these things. I think a lot of times too, like I've worked in departments with a lot of men who, I don't want to say obviously, but are oftentimes more outwardly competitive. Mm-hmm. Definitely not saying that women can't be, but sometimes women do that more quietly. But it can be very just like, I can't remember any specific instances, but I can remember the feeling of like someone leaving my office and just being like, I didn't want to hear whatever you just said. I don't care about whatever you're just bragging about. I think it's the braggadocious things. Right. But if you're both doing it, it's in, of course, it depends on your relationship with the person. But yeah, I've definitely been vying for the same promotion with someone else. And been the victim of lies and attacks and just like someone, not even, I wouldn't even say it's like they were possessed, wasn't even intentional.
Yeah.
But just activities and behavior that didn't exist prior to like, oh, all of a sudden there's, a position available. And I think some of it, from the outside looking in was just like, there was a lot of home life stuff happening and stress. So I really think it was like a different person and they didn't even realize what they were doing. They were so just like eye on the prize. They weren't even paying attention to who they're stepping on. So I'm actually still friends with this person. It's not, I didn't take it personally. I got the promotion at the end of the day anyway. Cause like I said, people can see when you are out there doing these things and you're not actually focusing on the work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People are generally perceptive. Like there's obviously going to be situations where some bosses may not notice that, but good ones do. And bad ones are ones you don't want to work for. And it's kind of like, those are like the life lessons you learn as you go. You're like, okay, this doesn't feel good. Yeah, that's because this is not a good fit. It's not a good person, not a good place. And you can know that. It's just when you're younger, it's very hard to be like, okay, well, I'm out because this isn't healthy for me. It gets much easier the older you get, I think. But
I don't know. I think it depends because I've got plenty of colleagues who are always like, oh, I'm so good for you quitting your job. I wish I could do that. I'm like, well, you could.
Yeah, you could. Good. Yeah. And, I think you and I even we were counseling somebody on that the other day and they're, mid-career. So it kind of happens in general all over. I shouldn't generalize.
Yeah. Because I think that, once you've got kids and those kids are preparing for college, then you're like, I can't leave this job. And actually, when I'm career coaching, that's a lot of times when I talk to people, they're like, well, I could take a pay cut to get into a new field, but not that much, because you've also set yourself up with a certain lifestyle that you have or you're used to. So there's both. But I think while you're young, that's when you need to do it. Mm-hmm. Pay attention and get yourself somewhere good that you can build a career family with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, okay, we'll get into the second half of the question then. So, in my mind, one of the things that you can do to avoid, that toxic type workplace is to build a good team, right? If you have a good team, even toxic behavior can get snuffed out. If someone is being that way, someone can pull them aside and be like, hey, maybe not today, So, what goes into that, Laura? It's easy to say, we build a great team and you can hope that things will work the way they do. But, there's always going to be conflict of some kind. So you can't avoid that. But how do you build a good team?
I've said this before. It goes back to the drawing board, to the hiring process and your job descriptions. Have you clearly defined your values? Do you know what you want in a team? I'm really not a fan of some people. I think it was a fad. I hope it's a fad. I hope it's over, where people were using like personality types in their hiring process and saying, well, we've already got 4 type C's and now we're looking for a D. Funny. Like that's really, you can't learn that stuff about someone in a half an hour, even a couple hour interview. That's not fair. It also, the science behind that is not exact either. So you can be eliminating or basically like shooting your own self in the foot, by not picking someone because we already have too many people like that person. So, that would be like, going with the whole like opposites attract thing and saying like, well, I can't date you because we're too same, I like you, but
everything we have so many interests in common, maybe too many.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Nick, we get along way too well. So this isn't working.
Sorry. That's so funny.
So, it starts there, but then it also, you have to align those values with the behavioral expectations. So when you do hire the people, those expectations have to be clearly stated, clearly exemplified by the leadership. And that's one of the big pitfalls is, there's a whole do as I say, not as I do mentality. And that's basically it. It's that simple, but it's not easy to actually do in practice.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned like the personality types. We need every single personality type on a wheel, and it's like, well, some of those will be in direct conflict with each other. So that's good. Good to know there. But now you say that, and it's so funny. I remember doing like that kind of personality thing as well, and then being called out for being different than everybody else. And man, honestly, it did not feel good. I was like, wow, okay. Like the way I read it was really cool, and the way you're reading it is, I'm not the same as you, or are the other leaders in this room, so I must not be a leader. Is that what you're telling me? And it was just such a weird dynamic, but it was kind of like, okay, well, this person telling me this is someone that I would never put on my team. This is already automatically somebody who's own ego can't handle small things like this? Is that what's happening right now? It's like, are you offended that I'm different than you? What is going on? And so some of that is like, you learn the personalities of people that you want on your team, and you learn people that you don't want on your team, because every interaction is a job interview in my mind, when you're working in the industry. Like we've had, I won't name names, but we've had people work on this podcast and do really well, and then suddenly get hired by our company because they were pretty amazing. And I knew that right away. And we don't have to deal with any of the, process we normally do. I was like, okay, cool. And that's the same for the other ways too. There's lots of people in the industry that I would just never work with, and they probably wouldn't want to work with me either, truthfully. So that's part of it, I think, coming in with a good mentality.
Yeah. I mean, so what do you do as a leader at Dawson when you have someone who is being toxic, or you've hired someone and you're like, oh, shoot, this is, this person is not healthy for our culture?
Well, there's always a 90-day like probationary period when we hire anybody. And honestly, we've had to use that where we had somebody who just was not a good fit. And it was a different group of, in Dawson, but, working with the whole team, it's kind of like a collaborative thing across the board. And that person just it wasn't a good fit. There was a lot of like, what we do as consultants is to, support our clients. And a lot of what they were doing was actively trying to do the opposite, where it's like, well, your client's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm like, no. They definitely are. They are absolutely doing what they're supposed to be doing. Here's the reasons why. And let's not disparage them on a phone call, please. And then it happens again. You're like, okay, so this is just the way things are. And, that's where changes need to be made. But yeah, there's no like set rule. I don't think. A lot of how we've gotten our folks is through networking, which we've talked about quite a bit. But, there's always challenges. There's always going to be issues. We've had people who I've had to pull aside and say, hey, we got to curb the behavior. We got to stop doing this kind of thing. And, if it's a senior person, sometimes or a junior person, sometimes we'll just, and I'm not their direct boss. We'll talk to their direct boss if it still happens. And then maybe it's a more direct conversation with that person about the team that they're working with. But, lots of different ways to attack it, I think. Yeah.
So are you a healthy go-getter or a toxic go-getter?
You caught me. So, I would argue I'm healthy. I don't know. Like I do have a lot of empathy for folks. I try to be very open-minded on a lot of different things. So I like to think that makes me healthy. There's probably parts of my personality that are less than that, but I'll never admit to them. So that seems healthy to me. No, I don't know. I would say I'm healthy. That's what I would say. But now that we've done this, all right, Laura, what about you?
I would think that I was a healthy go-getter. However, I will say, having been accused of being a person who's getting played favorites with or getting to do all the things, I would also say that there's some amount of other people's perception in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, it's funny that you mentioned that. I would say a lot of what my job is, people don't necessarily understand. Like they're like, oh, I would love to have your job and do what you do. Okay, what do I do? I don't know. Okay. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of coordination, a lot of calls, you have to love phone calls. You have to love meetings to do this kind of work. You have to love being in awkward and uncomfortable situations in random parts of the country. You gotta. Fun. Yeah. It does to me, yeah, but not to everybody,
Yeah. But even in the space I am in now with entrepreneurship, I know there are people who are like, I've had women, and this is always the backstabbing, the passive aggressive word. Well, you seem very ambitious. Like,
I am ambitious.
Really? In what way?
Yeah.
Like, am I trying to take over the world or, get that billionaire yacht? I don't see that happening yet, but you know what I mean? So I think some of it is just, you have to, I guess if you're sitting around asking yourself this question, am I a healthy go-getter or a toxic one? Or if someone has told you are, and you're like, wait a minute, you have to also think about where's their perception coming from, and are they being unrealistic to you?
Oh, it's such a good point. I honestly don't have anything else to add to it.
Okay, good. Let's get
you left me speechless. So yeah, let's get to the interview.
Welcome back to APR. Today we have Tiffany Duong, explorer and storyteller at Ocean Rebels, and JD Reinbott, marine conservationist and queer rights advocate on the show.
Thanks for having us. but we would speak.
On cue.
Love it.
I'm here with Tiffany and JD, and Nick is still in what is not Germany as I. So, Nick, how are things going, and where are you actually?
So I'm actually, now you have me all confused. No, I'm in Luxembourg. So not quite Germany, but close. It's nearby. And it's actually the only country I haven't been to while I've been gone. So, oh man. Yeah, it's been great. It's been pretty awesome to travel all over a bit, see Morocco, see a lot of Europe, and I would say a lot of different ways to live and be happy. So it's been really fun, genuinely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Tiffany and JD, we first interviewed you at our separately, but near together, and you live in the same house. So, there's a whole dynamic. we interviewed you in our first year of EPR. And at that time, you were both doing a lot of diving, and we're both on our live episode at NAEP conference last year. So now we're back almost another year later. And JD, you have a new job, and Tiffany, you've got some really cool projects going on, and you're still writing. So I'm excited to hear from both of you how things are going. So JD, why don't you tell us first about your new job?
Yeah. So I recently did a little bit of a pivot in my career. Before, when I last spoke with both of you, I was working as a biologist and also a boat captain at a marine research field station down here in the Florida Keys. And now I actually work for an organization as the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. Specifically, my new title is the Iconic Reef Guardians Stewardship Coordinator. And within that, I'm working to help implement and manage a citizen science program and initiative that is working under the umbrella of Mission Iconic Reefs. And this is a really cool program because, one, it's working to get members of the general public, tourists or locals even, involved in coral restoration, but also it's working to flip the script on what these citizen science programs look like. With that being said, instead of the professional divers, so, your DMs or your instructors who are going out and kind of helping divers get in the water, you have your coral restoration practitioners and those experts on the boat, and those dive instructors are kind of just hanging in the back, checking air. With this program, we're actually working to train these dive professionals so they become comfortable in pathways and processes of restoration work. They kind of get a check mark from those coral restoration organizations, and then they can actually lead these trips without the oversight of those restoration organizations. So really working to empower these individuals because they live and they work on the water, and now they can actually really start to give back their hands instead of just kind of watching from the.
That's really, it really is. How did you get the job?
Yeah. So one of my really good friends is all reposting job openings on her social media, and I always stalk them religiously just because I'm like, hey, you never know what's there. And I happened to see one of her stories, and I sat and read the job description. And I don't know if I alluded to this on my last call, but I kind of have been hopping around within the different careers that I've been doing. This is like my third job in 3 years. And just reading that job description, I was like, someone literally was like a fly on the wall for a year with me, listened to everything that I loved, what I wanted to do, and literally wrote a job for me. Like everyone that I've talked to, my references, everything was like, this is literally a JD job. So yeah, it just kind of all comes back to just being constantly tied to my phone and always on Instagram.
Which is true. That is, but I love it. That's fantastic. And, but so it's different, right? It's a different role altogether than what you've been doing. So is it hard to make a switch like that where you go from being on a boat all the time to not doing that?
Physically, I would say no. I'm not complaining about having to be out on the water 24/7 and huffing it as a boat captain and a diver. Obviously, it's a wonderful thing to do, but it is tiring. But mentally, it was actually a really big pivot and a really big shift for me. I'm 26 right now, and I've pretty much wanted to be a marine scientist my entire life. And I always kind of had this set expectation or this idea or template or whatever word that you want to, use for it, of what being a marine scientist is. And for me, that was always, having this really cool, flashy job where I'm on the water, 5, 6, 7 days a week, diving 24/7, always underwater, sunburnt because I'm not going to be tan because I never put sunscreen on, living that type of life. And for a while I was sitting with, I'm not happy in my career anymore, but this is image and that ideology of what I thought it meant to be a marine scientist. And then now pivoting, I'm obviously still getting the chance to go out and dive, but I work fully remote. I'm, sitting at home or sometimes from my bed answering emails and being on work calls. And it was almost shameful initially because it's like, I'm not holding that position, but kind of sitting with it and, taking time to process it, talking with Tiff because she stuck with me because we live in the same house. It's really nice to kind of shift your mentality and say there's so many niches in marine science. I know I definitely talked about that when I was with you guys last time, which so many different niches of careers themselves. And while, you say you're a marine scientist and people think one thing, what they think doesn't matter. It's what you think. It's not what your parents, society, your friends, your family, whoever think your career. As long as you are happy doing what you are doing, that's the most important thing that matters. So a shift was horrible. And I was like, oh my God, what am I walking away from? Am I now a failure? Am I throwing, the 4 years of my college degree out? And it's been the complete and total opposite. I love my new job. I'm very content. I'm very happy. And I'm still a very open and proud marine conservationist.
I love it. And I really appreciate the honesty too. And I think honestly, I struggle with that a lot too. When I was going through my career, and if I asked anyone to describe what I did, if I just gave them my title, I get 100 answers, because it's all over. And I know, Tiff, we talked with you about your shift as well. It was pretty, drastic going from being a lawyer to what you're doing now. But I don't know if we talked specifically about how hard it is to let go of the expectations of others, that they have on you, and how you can kind of just, JD's done it. We've all done it. But how did you kind of let go of that and allow your expectations for yourself to kind of override expectations of others?
A lot of tea, a lot of shredded cheese, a lot of soul searching. But for me, the first one was the hardest, leaving into when I didn't have a plan. So just foregoing an identity that had been, pivotal and thing when people were like, oh, I'm Tiff, I'm a lawyer, right? That's how you introduced yourself and I did it for a decade, law school and law. And to forego your first adult identity was really tough, especially with nothing to fill the void. I emotionally and mentally challenged myself to not try to fill in blank too early because I knew I was so unhappy and I knew I had to really go through some, soul search to find something that was more resonant and more aligned with who I wanted to become. So I purposefully would tell people, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm taking some time, or I'd be like, I'm taking a year off. So don't ask me for at least a year. I'm not going to know yet. But all of that was really hard. And the closer someone was to me, my mom, my family, my best friends, the harder it was to do that because that they mean well and that they're actually worried about you out of care. But it's so easy to try to fill in a blank that you're not ready to fill in, to give people their sense of, who you are. And I think the one principle that really guided me in that time, which I try to tell everybody who's beginning a career search, is be okay, disappointing other people if it means you won't disappoint yourself, because it's so easy for I think I went to law school, I'm pretty sure, to not disappoint people or because I was scared or, all those fun early 20s things.
Yeah.
And when I quit in my early 30s, I just realized we have one life and I've spent this long, making sure everyone else is pleased with me, but I wasn't pleased with where my life was and who I was. So I took a gut check and a lot of time in the sun to feel better.
Yeah. And it's a really great message. And it's I don't know, I just really like having you guys on. It's so much fun for all these reasons. But Tiff, you've got to have a lot of other things going on too. So what's new with you in the environmental field?
So the last we spoke, I was going real hard into freelance writing and storytelling. And more recently, I'd say end of last year, early this year, I realized that you can start to burn out even on things that you love. Oh, yeah. Which is, what was the question? What am I changing into? Okay.
Yeah.
So in November, I went to Norway on an all women's expedition to snorkel with orca. And if you ever have the chance to do something like that, I highly recommend. It was like the most beautiful and full silence that you can imagine. And it was just like soul fulfilling. And that really showed me that I want to do more in-person storytelling rather than necessarily written journal or even feature writing in magazines and stuff. When I was there, I was just recording videos of myself on the ship, talking about the color of the sunset or like seeing dorsal fins pop out of the water by the boats. And it was just psychotic. Like there's no word, right? You have to convey the feeling. And there was one day on the boat where there was an ice storm and I was the only person on the deck. And I just had this feeling of like, I belong here. Like it really reaffirmed for me, like, okay, I think I can shift away from writing and do more in-person stuff. So now I am exploring different types of storytelling, and I'd love to tell you about them later on in the show. But one is through creating a video game about an orca based off our expedition. And the other one is trying to go on expeditions and share live what it feels like to be there.
So cool.
What? That is so cool.
I know. I've already heard all about this.
Yeah. Laura's like, oh yeah, no big deal. And I'm like,
his face is like, whoa.
My mouth is open. It's a
honestly, living with Tiff sometimes people are like, where is she? And I don't even know.
I don't know either. It's special.
Yeah. The moon, basically, right? I mean, wow, that's incredible.
I would not be surprised.
Right. That's what I'm saying,
Do you ever get negative feedback or arguments from people about the stuff that you write about? Because even when I write things, I get my own like version of imposter syndrome. Something like if I say something the way that I want to say it, I might picture like someone, retaliating or saying that, you're wrong or just like whatever. And then I find myself changing what I wrote to either like water it down or make it sound more professional, air quotes. How do you deal with stuff like that? Or have you encountered people or doing that to your articles? And how do you deal with that?
I've for sure encountered it. I think every person who puts themselves out there does. Mm-hmm. Any medium. It's not, just writing. Like people think films are terrible. People think art is not special, but there's a lot of merit to creating because you need to or want to. And I really believe that. So for me, like, I really want to tell these stories and that drives me to do it. That said, when you receive it, it stings for sure. Like I've told my leaving law because of a dive trip story a couple times, and the feedback's almost always like amazing. Like, wow, I wish I could. But there's one that sticks in my mind because you, of course, only remember the negative ones.
Yes.
Right.
And, some angry person was like, tell me you don't have kids without telling me you don't have kids. And it stung, even though I was like, yeah, I don't have kids and I'm choosing not to have kids so I can have these experiences. But, of course, like that's the one I'm reciting to you. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the ways that I get around it is something I've learned from a lot of past writers where you keep a kudos folder. So like everyone says something awesome about you or your work, write it somewhere, keep it somewhere, take a screenshot of it. So that when you get the negative ones, you can kind of boost yourself up and be like, oh yeah, no. Like people do like me. Like people like my work.
Yeah.
You have to remind yourself, and then I think the other part is just about what you were saying about watering it down. For me, this practice, this doing my work is all about really expressing myself. And that means I have to be vulnerable and true, right? Because otherwise, what's the point, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Everyone likes it, but I don't like it. Right. It's back to that. Like, I want to make something I'm proud of that I want to share.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the practical tip too. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add to that, JD? Since we're talking expanding beyond writing.
I mean,
you've been like your last year on Instagram. Come on. Like,
yeah, I was going to say. You're not being
safe or you're crazy or whatever. Like, what do you do?
I mean, for me, for context with the show, as an openly gay man, I've really been stepping into my femininity and kind of breaking the mold of what I thought for the longest time it meant to be gay. And I thought I had to act and behave. And it's almost been like this coming out process all over again, even though I've been out for over 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, I mean, like I've been stuff on Instagram. I've been, running around in heels on land and underwater, attending galas in feminine women, air quotes here, clothing with like boy face and everything. And, for the most part, everyone's been like, yes, oh my God, like love this. Like people come up to me and they still talk to me about like my reels that I make and stuff. And I haven't really had a lot of negative or like derogatory comments that I think a lot of people are almost like, oh, that's kind of like you're opening the door for that. I think a lot of it has just been like people saying I could never do that, or I wouldn't feel comfortable, or I wouldn't feel safe. And for me, kind of like responding back to them, and a lot of it's just been passing conversations when I'm okay, like if you say you could never do that, that's you saying you could never do that. Like that's you, that's your prerogative. That's your decision. Like you ultimately control and decide what you do with your life and how you live and how you want to be. And that, I mean, I'm very blunt when I say that back to them, and I'm like, you can choose to live your life that way. And that's okay. Just how I choose to live my life, very unfiltered, open, and as who I am. But yeah, I don't know if that like fully answered your question, but
yeah, I mean, I think it does, because you're out there just doing you. And I think the people that are saying to you, I could never do that, are really saying, I wish I could do that. And so probably a handful of people or certain people that are following you, well, JD can do it, I can do it. And, inspiring people to be their true self.
And that's like kind of the main reason why I've been pushing my boundaries and my limits, because like for the younger me's, like the kids out there who are in the closet, who are so terrified to just be who they are. And like, I mean, when I went to the Red Dress Red Gala a couple of months ago, which was a fundraiser for HIV and AIDS. And I went to Sephora and had them do my makeup because, as Tiffany can attest, I'm horrible at doing my own makeup. And I remember like walking out of, we're in good company together. I remember like walking out of that Sephora with a full face of like glam, over the top, like red, bold makeup. And I was in like a button down and shorts. And like part of me was like, crap, like I have to watch it. I'm my full goddess outfit. And then I was walking through and I was like, you're just being who you are. And like, yeah, so weird looks and like people taking pictures while I was walking by. But I was like, this is me living my authentic life. And like, who knows, there could have been a kid or even an adult walking by me saying, well, he's doing that. Oh my God, I can do that too.
Yeah.
Just pushing just to live your life authentically. Because I feel like so many of us are so afraid to do that. But like, once you do, you're just free.
Right. Liberating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try it. Or just like, no, I've been doing a bunch of new stuff over the last year or two. And it's nice to just not, I'm a very reserved person. And I think a lot of the reason I don't do some things was because I was afraid of what people would think, or, I don't know, however it would be perceived by people to do something different or wild and crazy, whatever.
And it's like, to me, it's like not even like, sometimes it's just a step, you see that, JD, and maybe you're inspired to do something small. It doesn't even have to be like, I'm going to do exactly that right now, tomorrow. But, maybe it's just like, maybe I go to a movie theater and I have makeup on in a movie theater and no one sees me, or whatever it is, you can do those kinds of things. It's not, 0 to 1,000. So, but that's the inspiring part. I love it.
Yeah. And seeing how I met you two on LinkedIn, I think.
Which is crazy.
So I stalked you and then I reached out, I think, or maybe someone recommended us.
I think it was LinkedIn.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Memory on a few of us in this room is not that great. So we've discovered. But now I'm here visiting you guys for the second time. And you're on the podcast for the third time. And I just did a presentation on networking to the Climate Corps in California. And they had some really great questions from the students. And so I kind of wanted to share them with you guys and see what your thoughts were on what the answers should be. So, I gave them all the typical advice for networking and how to do this and how to find people in a group too. But at the end, two of the great questions were, one was, how do you know who to network with? So go. And this question is from obviously like a student who was thinking, on LinkedIn, or if I walk in a room somewhere, there's all these people who like,
well, I would say, first off, don't think of it like checking the box. Because like, networking isn't about like, oh, I talked to these 3 people, which is going to lead to this hopefully, and I'll resume or whatever. Think of networking as connecting, right? So just go there and see. If you're in a big room, it's super intimidating. Like I literally was telling the two of them here that I was hiding in my car yesterday during a networking event for so long, shoving Cuban food in my mouth because I was not yet mentally ready to engage. But then when I put the food down and I was like, okay, we're here to network. And I went in and I was on, and then I got to talk to a bunch of great people and make great connections. So when you think of networking as connecting, then just take the pressure off of oh, you have to meet the right person who's going to open all the doors. Just talk to everyone and see who you click with and who has something that you're interested in. And then just talk to them like a human. Just be like, oh my God, tell me more about that. Or, oh, I did something like that too. And you never know, what could come of it. I've gotten, I think 4 of my last jobs off of random people on dive boats that I've been diving next to. And I'm just talking about my life. And they're like, oh, my first newspaper job, someone was like, I own a newspaper. Do you want to write for me? And I was like, sure, let's talk after we come from underwater, So networking isn't just traditional, in networking spaces. It's anywhere you're in the world, interfacing with someone, sharing your passion, making a connection.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it also is just kind of tying back to just being your authentic self. When you go into a networking situation, don't try to pretend to be something that you're not and just show up as who you are. Wow. And just kind of work to have those conversations like Tiff was saying naturally. And for me, I know a lot of the times when I go to different events, whether it's I was down in Key West recently for a tourism event and I was working it, but I just kind of sat in the back and was listening to everyone talk and listening to these sidebar conversations, as well as the individuals who were actually sitting up on the panels. And I was like, okay, I need to talk to you because I genuinely am interested in what you're talking about. And then just taking that time to find the people and knowing that you're going to kind of be circling them like a hungry shark, waiting for them to finally come up for air. And then you're like, cool, here's I know with me, I cornered this poor woman while she was eating her fish tacos on the couch, hiding from everyone. And I was like, love your work. Let's talk. But yeah, I think had I gone in with a set intention of that networking opportunity and tried to pretend to be something that I really wasn't, I think the woman would have known exactly that the jig would be up and she'd be like, no. But then also I would have not gotten anything from those conversations. And when I sat down and was talking to this woman, I was like, I'm going to be blunt with you. I'm trying to start my own nonprofit focused in queer rights and environmentalism. I have no idea where to start. How do you do it? And the feedback and the opinions and the steps that she gave me are so much more impactful than it would have been being la-di-da. I have my entire life figured out. So just being honest.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm always bring whatever questions you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your point, one of the other questions someone asked was how do I make it less awkward? And I was just make it more awkward.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
Awkward the better.
Yeah. They'll remember you forever.
And this is awkward. To answer your question, just own it instead of trying to pretend it's not awkward.
Yeah.
This is awkward.
Talking to friends is awkward.
Right.
I mean, good Lord, the beginning of this call. Yeah. Right.
Go back to Germany, Nick.
70 episode is awkward. So second question, I love this one, was how do you stay in touch with people you don't necessarily need or want anything from in the moment, but you want to hold on to them?
Not literally.
I'm a LinkedIn hound and I try business cards in whatever form it may be. I know there's been a big shift for digital cards, but again, business cards. And I just try to connect in any form of online presence, talking LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And to that note, also engaging with what they're posting. It's not just we have 1,000 friends on Facebook and I'm kind of okay, I don't know who 50% of you are, but the people who comment, share, engage with what you're posting and what you're talking about always kind of stick out in my mind when I'm thinking of those things. So that's the biggest thing I try to do.
Yeah, I've invited people on the show just from comments or posts that people have made. So it makes a difference. That's cool.
I am notoriously terrible at keeping in touch with people I like, let alone people that I've just met. So I'm definitely more interested than JD. He's my big social, safe bet. But what I do, because I know about myself, I hack myself by when I meet someone and I know for sure I want to keep in touch. I tell them in person, I'm like, I'm going to follow up with you in an email, or like I ask them for their phone number, WhatsApp, depend, whatever. But like I tell them affirmatively, I will get in contact with you. And then I've created that expectation more for myself than for them.
Yeah.
And then I put it on my list right there and I make myself do it. And then I go, like, I'm a huge calendar fiend. Like my calendar is color coded.
I've seen this calendar now in person. Whoa.
No, it's like color coded and like themed, and it's aggressive, but I thrive in it. And so whenever I meet someone, whenever I go to like an event, I go into that event and I write down the names of everybody that I need to follow up with into the event, so that I don't have to remember like, who was that person in the black? We talked about tacos, you know. I like write down their name, I write down tacos, and I write like follow up about, you know, whatever, so that I have my to-do list already created by the time of the event.
Tiffany may be the only person who is my equal or bestie at processes and documentation.
Dear God.
I was like, broken people, old habits die hard.
Yeah. But I love it. It's like, you know, accountability is really important and to yourself, you know. So I love the message. And I honestly don't want to ask the next question because I know it's going to be a great answer from both of you. And I think Laura's doing this to me on purpose, but it's time for field notes, where the two of you make me very jealous. Which I think is the point of the show. But this is where we, you know, share memorable stories about the work that we do. We encourage our listeners to share those stories using the hashtag field notes so we can read them on future episodes. Apparently,
stories every single day. So
yeah, I don't even know where to start with either one of you, but has anything exciting happened since the last we spoke?
I can go first. So really kind of stepping into my environmental X queer rights lane, I did a collaboration with 12 Tides, which is an organization out in California that's working to grow kelp, and they make kelp snacks. They're really good. But we did a collaboration on Instagram for Pride Month, and it basically was just working to like offer different opportunities or ways that you can make the field of marine science more inclusive. And I was like originally going to just film like a reel of me talking. And then I was like, absolutely not. That's what I want to have on my social media. So I took it to the level of me going out on a boat in full scuba kit and a pair of 6-inch red stiletto pumps, and back rolled off of a boat with heels instead of and have a video of me walking underwater in heels. I'll make sure to share my Instagram. That way people can go find it. Mm-hmm. The best part about that was one, like obviously having so much fun filming that entire reel, but then the reception and feedback that I got after it went live. I had a bunch of individuals who were DMing me on my social media, just basically thanking me for being so gay in marine science and really just kind of pushing that envelope. There were individuals, you know, were in the closet who reached out to me and were like, you know, I'm not very public about this, but seeing this, you know, makes me feel like I can actually exist in this space and that I can take up space. I have a couple people that I'm like linked up with and just continue to have conversations with and like consider them very good online friends. So that was just really cool just to finally fully step into that lane and that path that I really want to accelerate my career in.
Can't see my face, but yeah, it's incredible. I love it.
It's hilarious reel.
I was just going to say, it is so funny. Like
there's also a bloopers reel. That's even better.
It's so good. I was going to say that the bloopers reel had me dying. It was wonderful. You guys have to check it out.
It took a lot of takes. God bless my friend who helped me film it, because she was in the background and she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, we are rolling with it. You can ask me no questions. It is Pride Month. It is my month. No questions.
All right, Tiff, what about you?
So at the end of last year, I did a lot of traveling, which was amazing. We were in the Azores together. I went to a pizza yoga retreat in Italy. It is a thing. It is awesome. They do very naturally, but my favorite thing that I did last year was to snorkel with orca. They got like less than away, probably closer. And they're basically like the if you can imagine was like emerald green to black. So it's like almost otherworldly. It feels empty until you see just like a white eye patch moving really slowly towards you. Gosh. And it's scary describing it now, but it wasn't. I promise. It was really just like you caught your breath, and like it moves and it glides like right past you in a slow motion sequence. Sometimes like they would cock an eye up and like look at you, and you'd be like, "You see me?" And it'd be like, "Yeah, you're looking at me too, lady." We were in these like big floaty, not cute, dry foods. So we just like teal Michelin, like marshmallow men staring at these, and it was incredible. And then we were there for the orca, but then, throw in like pods of 60 humpback whales who were eating around the orca like birds. And then when they would only eat herring. So we scared, not that you need to be scared, just be responsible when you do these things. But when they would eat the herring, all their fish scales would go in the water and it would look like stars against the dark skies. And then like the sky's the sea. And then these like orcas and whales would come out like, like weird celestial astronauts. It was wild. Like I still am not quite back here from that.
Well, that is super awesome. I can see when you're talking about it, how otherworldly that it is. And I can only imagine, but apparently soon I may be able to witness this for myself without going to Norway. So tell me what's going on with that.
Yeah. So hitting on all the things we talked about, my random roommate on this trip, her name's Louise. She's a brilliant VR designer. And then her second random roommate, Aya, we formed this team. We call ourselves the Three Otters. And we're going to make a VR video game based off our expedition. So real data points, real, images from the fjords we were in are now in our game. And we've replicated experience of like that just space for players. And to not give away too much, you start the game as a young orca and you have to learn how to survive in the fjord. Because while we were there, as if it wasn't magic enough, it was the time when mama orcas were bringing their babies there to eat and learn how to swim and be orcas. So you're watching them learn how to like slap their tails and like breathe. And you're like, oh my God, you're so cute. So you are that cute little peanut and you go through the game and you have to learn how to eat herring and how to survive around humans. And then you interface with snorkelers and you do this really cool like body swap so that you actually get to embody both pods at the same time, right? Like, so you can remember that every choice you make is affecting not you as a human only, but also like your whole Earth family.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I cannot wait to see this thing. I don't know how you see the thing. Did you buy the equipment and stuff?
We are creating ways that you can experience it even without a headset. So headset is the most supremo, like you will be the orca, but like I don't have a headset. And there are definitely ways that you can still experience it in a altered dimension.
Yeah, that's so insane.
Yeah, it's wild. When is it going to be done?
We are making it right now. I actually leave at the same time as Laura. We're going to the airport area together to go up to Canada so that I can try it for the first time. We're putting all the scripts are done. We have voice actors, the game's written, all that. We submitted to a United Nations contest about video games for sustainable development goals. So it's rolling. We hope to have it live by fall.
Oh, that's fast.
It's coming. Yeah. And we started this in January. So like there's a lot you can do with 1 hour a week, consistent.
Yeah.
That's crazy. My business partner and I were talking about that as well. Since I'm traveling next, even the podcast, we can meet up once a week and get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As long as you're not too loud. And then I know I hate to do this to you guys because it's so wonderful to talk to both of you, but we're running out of time. But is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I guess the only major thing coming up on my timeline that I'd love to come back and talk a little bit more about is I actually just found out today that my proposal for a workshop with Camp Brave Trails, which is a queer youth summer camp out in California, has been accepted. And in either late July or early August, I'm actually going to be flying out to California to run this workshop with a bunch of queer youth. So I'm very excited for that. And it ties in really nicely because recently I've kind of realized what my end all be all life purpose is, where I actually want to work to create my own nonprofit. That's the word. I was like, hello. That is curtailed towards queer youth, but ties them to marine science. So working to get them scuba certified, get them kayaking, paddleboarding, swimming, snorkeling, whatever it may be. And that's really cool because the entire idea of Camp Brave Trails is really kind of tying into what I've recently realized is my own like end purpose, because I want to actually work to create a nonprofit for queer youth that are trying to get involved in marine science, because there are so many barriers to that field already, but throw, marginalized communities and, the whole slew of other things on board, and it makes it even harder. So basically working to allow these youth to see individuals just like themselves who are living their lives while tying it into things like scuba diving, paddleboarding and kayaking, swimming, the whole 9 yards. So I'm really excited for Brave Trails because it's kind of that nice initial step in making my dream a reality.
That is so wonderful. And we'll have to have you back and talk more about it.
Definitely. I look forward to it.
And Tiff, anything from you?
Well, our 3 otters, we just signed up to go to Antarctica in February of next year on a 100-person expedition.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go and we're going to, in between now and we hope to make like a 3 otter studio and create an Antarctica version of our game, so we'll do the ground truthing experience. And then we want to create opportunities for people who can't get there or don't want to get there to still feel the magic that we feel in a accessible, realistic, moving, and more environmentally positive way. So look out for that version. 2024, maybe. We'll see.
That is the coolest thing. I'm so
hanging out with these two.
I was about to say, take me with you, is all I'm saying. That's awesome. That's great. And last but not least, where can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at the handle Tip Makes Waves, or on my website, which is www.tiffanyduong.com. And my email's linked all over. So just find.
And then for me, you can go to Tiffany's Instagram account and basically scroll through any of the photos or any of all of them.
Wow. Wow.
People think we're dating, but we're actually not. Because but my Instagram handle is @thecoralqueen, and Queen is spelled QWEEN. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn just under JD Reinbott.
Awesome.
That's great.
Nick, you go back to Germany or wherever you are and enjoy the rest of your trip.
I will.
Wherever you are. And we're going to go back to kayaking. We're going to go back to kayaking with manta rays, and we'll send you a picture.
Please don't.
You will. Don't you worry.
I know. Love you guys. I really do. It's great to see your faces.
So nice.
Thanks,
to see
guys.
you too. Bye.
Bye.
That's our show. Thank you, Tiffany and JD, for coming back on again. It's always so great to have you on. Really enjoy the conversations. Great to see your faces. Hope to see you guys again soon. Please be sure to check us out each and every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. See ya, everybody. Bye.